What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are showcasing one of, if not arguably the best pulse rifle in Destiny right now. It's a gun that so many people in the community are talking about, are hyped about. It's the Year 3 Trials of Osiris pulse rifle, the Blind Perdition. Now, this gun, again, is taking the community by storm because its stats are absolutely outrageous. Now, I am a longtime fan of pulse rifles. I love using pulse rifles in PvP. They're kind of my go-to weapon. In fact, my number one go-to weapon was the Godroll Hawksaw that the Crucible vendor sold at the tail end of Year 2. Like, I use that thing absolutely all the time, and I saw so many other people use it because it was just fantastic. And here's the thing, guys. Here's why I'm calling the Blind Perdition potentially, like, actually arguably the best pulse rifle in the game. It's because of that Hawksaw. If I was to say to you right now that I think the Hawksaw is the best pulse rifle, like the Godroll Hawksaw is the best pulse rifle in Destiny, that's not an outrageous claim to make. I'm sure some of you would disagree with me, and that's totally fair. Some of you would be saying, no, the Grasp of Malik, if you get the Godroll on that, it's absolutely fantastic. A few of you might even be saying, well, if you go even further and get the Godroll on the Hopscotch Pilgrim, it's just so accurate, all that stuff. But I don't think any of you guys would argue that saying that Hawksaw, the Godroll Hawksaw, is the best pulse rifle would be a completely outrageous and outlandish thing to say. Like, you could make that argument. It's that good. And the Blind Perdition, I think, is just better than the Hawksaw. So, you have a gun that's better than one of the best pulse rifles in the game. Like, what does that make the Blind Perdition? Again, it makes it absolutely phenomenal. And let's take a look at what makes the Blind Perdition just so damn good. Now, this weapon has a choice of 3 ballistics. The main ones you're really going to want to choose between are Smart Drift Control, which maximizes the stability, and then you have Smooth Ballistics, which maximizes the range. Essentially, if you're having a hard time controlling this weapon, go with Smart Drift Control, but if you can control pulse rifle recoil, you're really used to pulse rifles, you may even want to go with Smooth Ballistics and absolutely maximize that range, which is, by the way, flipping ridiculous. The range on this weapon is absurd, and it's increased even more so by small bore. Small bore increases the stability and the range of this weapon, taking it to an outlandish proportion. Now, this is backed up by arguably one of the best perks on this gun, which is high caliber rounds. This makes it so that when you're shooting enemies with the Blind Perdition, they stagger more often. That is insane. A pulse rifle with high caliber rounds and this good of range and accuracy, you're going to be winning so many. I win so many 1v1s that I probably shouldn't because of high caliber rounds, making enemies, making snipers recoil and have a harder time to hit you. Like, this weapon should be called Sniper's Bane. It is really obvious when you're shooting snipers. Like, you can engage a lot of snipers in the open and they miss a lot. And that combined with the recent sniper nerf adding more flinch, like, you are just causing a huge amount of flinch to enemy snipers when they try to engage you in those medium to long range encounters to which a pulse rifle is most at home. So it's an incredibly useful perk. And that is rounded off by 2 very good perks. The first, Counterbalance. Counterbalance, the absolute cream of the crop when you're talking about PvP perks, making the recoil almost all vertical and making it just so easy to control. Counterbalance just makes this weapon incredibly accurate and incredibly easy to control and capitalizes on that range perk. And below it, Outlaw is actually no joke either. If you're using this weapon in PvE, you don't really need counterbalance. Like, landing all of your headshots doesn't really have as much of an emphasis in PvE. And therefore, Outlaw in PvE is probably the best thing to run for this weapon. It's going to make up for that small magazine size. And in fact, you can see from the gameplay of me using this weapon with Outlaw in PvE that the recoil pattern really isn't that bad. It does kick slightly to the right, but that's about it. So consider taking off Counterbalance. I would still keep it on personally. I like to guarantee the accuracy of my shots, but if you're comfortable taking it off, you could run Outlaw and really mitigate the downside of that small magazine size. Because just the native recoil pattern of this gun is very good. and that small magazine size of 21 is really the only downside of this weapon. It can make engaging multiple enemies kind of hard, but 21 rounds is more than enough to kill your first enemy and probably your second. And then because of the nature of Destiny's PvP, you're probably going to seek cover at that point, regenerate your health, and then just reload your weapon. And the reload speed for the Blind Perdition is actually relatively high, so it's not even that big of a downside. Now, on top of all of that, if you go 9-0 in Trials of Osiris and get this weapon from the end chest, it comes with Snapshot, which is not like an incredibly overpowered extra perk to have. If it was anything even more substantial like Headseeker, you know, this weapon would just be blatantly overpowered. But Snapshot, getting a free perk, like completely free passive perk with this weapon, is just straight usefulness. It's just straight up better than other pulse rifles. Again, it just has an extra perk. It's fantastic. And although, again, there's better things than Snapshot, Snapshot is definitely not useless either, being able to aim down sights even faster and beating out other pulse rifle users to the draw. And you can really see here, when I actually compare the Blind Perdition to the Hawksaw, what's going on and why I think it's better. It has a chunk of extra range, and it misses out on just a little bit of stability and reload and magazine size. But again, when you already have counterbalance, do you really need that tiny extra bit of stability? I don't think so, but that tiny extra bit of range is actually a big deal. And frankly, that's not a tiny bit of range, that's an extra 10% of range that the Blind Perdition has, not to mention, if you get the Adept version, you're beating this Hawksaw on the draw every time. So pulse rifle users, rejoice, you have another huge tool in your arsenal with the Trials of Osiris Blind Perdition, and especially the Adept version. This weapon came out of nowhere and is instantly tier 1 in the Crucible. Again, everyone's gonna have their personal preferences, but I have no gripes in saying that this is arguably the best pulse rifle in the game. And the best part is, it has a designated role. You don't have to get the God roll. You don't have to farm Omnigul for hours on end to get the God roll Grasp of Malak. You don't have to get the God roll Hawksaw. You don't have to get the God roll Waltz. It comes with the God roll. It comes with exactly what you'd want, which is arguably the best part about this weapon. And although the Adept version is the best version, even if you're not that good at Trials of Osiris and you lose almost every time, you can still get this weapon as a random drop when doing the Trials of Osiris playlist, and even out of one of those bounties if you have the right tier. So in other words, expect to see a lot more of the Blind Perdition as Destiny moves forward. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.